Thank you to the organizers for inviting me as well. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Bogdan, and today we're going to be talking about how to drive SMB sales with marketing automation. Not sure how many of you are currently doing any marketing automation or at what level. Some of you may already do a few things I'm going to share today, but with this particular presentation, I really wanted to cover some of the very basics of marketing automation and a few more advanced things as well. Before we dive in, I also wanted to mention everything I'll share with you today is very much achievable with the right stack of tools and apps. Oftentimes, marketing automation is more overwhelming to implement than it is expensive. So that's just one thing I wanted to put out there as well. Right, so just to tell you a bit about myself, my name is Bogdan. I have worked in marketing automation for around 5 years. I didn't always specialize in it, but somehow my career always involved different aspects of working with marketing automation. I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of businesses across the world, helping them increase revenue and overall building better customer journeys for their business. Lastly, I've also worked as an email marketing and CRM strategist within the e-commerce sector mainly. Yeah, I really love email marketing. I can get quite nerdy about it. So really, if you have any questions at the end of this, please, happy to answer. Currently, just to tell you a bit about that as well, I work for Videos. It's an amazing company based in the UK. Videos is a SaaS technology company helping people to create animations effortlessly. It's a really cool app, and it's the place where I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of freedom with the marketing automation strategies I've implemented. So to dive right in, marketing automation. Again, don't know how many of you are currently doing marketing automation. Maybe you do some of it, some aspects of it, and you don't even know it. But the main thing is it's growing at an incredible rate. My assumption, though, and it's one of the reasons I accepted to do this webinar as well, is that unless you work in a tech company or maybe e-commerce, this is an area of marketing that is often overlooked by many businesses, especially at a start. So especially with small businesses. And I want to start this webinar by saying that marketing automation is probably one of the biggest high-performing elements of digital marketing. And if you're not doing it, you should consider it strongly. So to look at a very top level view of benefits, it's just a summary of things that you could achieve with marketing automation. It can help you drive more qualified leads for your sales team, provide personalized buying journeys for your website visitors, segment leads based on customer profiles. It can help you increase sales for your online funnels, increase your lead to customer conversion rate, and lower the lead to customer conversion rate as well. So the last one is quite cool. This is a metric that I've been looking at here at Videos, and we're basically looking at the amount of time it takes to convert a lead to a customer and how much can you reduce that time by automating certain parts of the customer journey. We can go into more details on the next slides. Today, I want to cover 5 ways that can help you drive more sales for your SMB. And you'll be able to take these tips and apply them for your business, no matter what you sell or who you sell it to. So let's dive in. Let's start with number 1. Number 1, nurturing qualified leads using triggered emails. So this, in my opinion, this is one of the most important ones. It's also one of the easiest ways to start using marketing automations to drive sales right away. Automated emails perform 10 times better than broadcast emails, which are the ones you send manually as opposed to being triggered by an automated event. Triggered emails based on lead actions will allow you to create seamless ways for your business to sustain conversations with prospects or leads and turn them into customers. The great thing about it is that you don't even have to get your sales team involved at this point. Once you set it up, it will work for you literally while you sleep. But let me give you a few examples. One example in particular, how you can collect leads, qualify them, and nurture them using triggered emails. The core framework of email automation is simple. If you're unfamiliar with the terminology, I'll give you a definition. A triggered email is an email or series of emails set up as an automation within your ESP. So that's your email service provider, for example, MailChimp or ActiveCampaign, and sent to a select subscribers based on their behavior. So that can be a subscribe event, a purchase event, a checkout event, website visit event, page view, for example. So for example, when someone signs up to your list via a pop-up as well, they get a welcome email, also called a new subscriber flow. And when someone, for example, if someone views a product on your site but doesn't purchase, they could get a reminder and having triggered email sent to them. And I wanted to have a look at the following flow chart. At the very top, you will see the traffic that arrives, arrives on your website, both paid and organic. And this is actually a flowchart that I used to explain something that I call the e-commerce ecosystem, but it works quite well to just explain marketing automation in general and why it's needed. If we look at all of these areas over here, these are your website pages. So you get your traffic and then you get your website pages. In an ideal world, we would have all of our traffic go through our funnel from top to bottom, and all of us would make a ton of sales and live happily ever after. But this is not an ideal world, and you will lose customers at all of these stages during your funnel. If you're a B2B or SaaS, your website visitor will land on your homepage, the pricing page, the contact page, then suddenly bounce. If you're e-commerce, they'll land on the product pages, collection pages, about us page, and again, they will bounce. So what do we do? Well, in order for your customers to convert, they'll go through various steps. And I like to call these events or actions because all of these steps are trackable events you can send to your email marketing provider. The customer, for example, will view your product pages, they'll land on the checkout page or contact page or whatever, and they'll make a purchase and then land on the thank you page. That's kind of like the standard journey in e-commerce, but it can have various other formats depending on the business that you have. Maybe your customer journey is that they need to land on the pricing page, then on the inquiry page, then on the thank you page. They land on the download page if you have a resource that you want them to consume, a form where they have to put in their details, then the thank you page. All of these are places that you can track if you collect their lead information at the right time. But obviously, not all of your customers will convert that way. Not everyone will go from top to bottom, meaning some of them will view your product or your download page, then they will bounce. Others, they will reach all the way to checkout, and then again, they will leave. That's where triggered emails come into place. And your email will trigger based on these events, and it will essentially aim to move your customers forward down the journey. And that's kind of how it looks. So just to kind of like make it sort of a simple conclusion, events are places where your leads have been during your customer journey. Triggered emails help you move your leads forward down the journey and reach them a desired goal. So now that we understand how triggered emails work and why we need them, let's see a very simple way to create a triggered email or automation flow. They have many names. It's important that you kind of like know the terminology of it as well. In marketing automation, obviously, email automation is a big part of it, and they have multiple naming conventions. It could be called an email flow, an email automation, email sequence. Make sure you sort of understand some of they all mean the same thing, but they're named differently in different places. So yeah, it's a very simple way to get started with marketing automation, I would say, is to create a lead collection page on your website. And this comes again in many names. It can be a lead magnet, a white paper, it could have a demo inquiry, depending on the type of business that you have. This can be anything really. If you have an e-commerce website, this can be as simple as creating a pop-up on your website. But essentially, the lead magnet will be the action that your lead takes on your website, and ultimately the action triggering the automated emails. This is the very first step you can take to build that very basic marketing automation strategy. And your objectives are simple. The first one is to build a landing page describing your service or product. And obviously, you might already have that. But the second one, if you want to create some sort of lead magnet or downloadable resource, is to deliver high value content. So you could gate this content with a form which allows you to collect information about your website visitors. The third step is to obviously collect that information. I'll probably just, I would say at this point, you want to keep it simple. You don't want to add too much friction to the customer journey. So asking them 1,000 questions. I would say at this point, email address, first name, last name, business name should be enough for you to get an understanding of who these people are. Number 4 is to learn more about your lead. So this might go a bit in contradictory what I said before, but because of all of the privacy issues that we have nowadays, and all of the issues that sort of Apple has implemented, not allowing us to see everything on email marketing, I would say that one of the most important aspects of marketing automation is to collect data. And I'm talking here about first and zero-party data. This is the data that you collect from your visitors and they give it to you willingly, as opposed to collecting data through third-party tools. And obviously the last step is to follow up to these leads with triggered emails. Now, let's have a look at one example of how this can look like. And this is actually one of our own funnels here at Videos. And again, this particular example could be more relevant for people that work in SaaS or B2B businesses. If you work in e-commerce, it won't necessarily apply the same, but you could still do this. We'll start with the first on our list, which is to build a landing page describing your service or product. In our case, we added a very simple landing page that we linked at the top of the menu on our website. It describes one of our B2B products called Videos White Label. And the main thing about it is that it has a very low commitment call to action, which is to download, to consume the content that we're promoting. In our case, the high value content is an on-demand webinar. Again, this can be anything. We decided against gating this content because we really put an emphasis on making sure we really qualify these leads and getting people that are really interested in inquiring on our website. But if I would be you, probably I would gate this part of the page with a simple form where you can collect first name, last name, email address, business name, just so you can collect their information in case they bounce. Once they reach and actually have to consume the content, you can follow up again with triggered emails. But in this particular example, we decided to put the gating afterwards. So the third step would be to collect lead contact information. And this is where we have like a button below the webinar, and we ask them, if you're ready to go to the next step, click here to inquire from us. This is where we collect the lead contact information. So very basic information, such as what's your first, last name, what business do you work for, what's your email address. We integrated number 4, which is learn more about your leads, within the same form. And here we're trying to qualify them by learning a bit more about who they are. This is very important because this data gets synchronized with your CRM and your email provider, and you can use it if you make it quite quantitative and not qualitative. So what we have here is more qualitative for our sales team to understand who they are, as opposed to something that you can segment easily. But if you have something quite quantitative that you can segment, then this can help you segment some of your email flows, email automations in multiple paths to follow up with more personalized messaging. But obviously, lastly on our list is to follow up with triggered emails. This particular screenshot is from our own email service provider that we're using. And here is where we have multiple sort of points during the automation canvas where we add emails that we want to follow up to the people that inquired, synchronizing them with our CRM and so on. I would say the main goal for you with the follow-up emails is to get engagement. And engagement can be defined by yourself. So for you, it can be maybe calls booked, it can be email replies, it can be website visits, whatever you want your lead to do. Once they've consumed your content, they give you the information, and then you sort of start following up with them. If you work in B2B or SaaS and you're trying them to buy a product or service from you, then obviously, if you have a sales team, it might be relevant for you to get them to book a call. If you want them to go straight into your sales team's inbox, it might be relevant for them to just reply to the email. And if you want them to visit a new page where you could qualify them further, then that could be a website visit. At which point they will exit the automation and they will sort of go into the sales team. A couple of do's and don'ts as well for email automation. I would say you need to follow up at least 3 or 4 times with triggered emails. And I would say 3 or 4 times, not as a general rule of thumb, but just if you're really starting out, start with 3 or 4 email follow-ups, different types of content, different types of engaging with these leads, and see how that performs. If you have a lot of content, a lot of case studies that you can share with them, definitely increase the number of emails, maybe for a longer period of time, around 14 days, something like that. But you do not want to spam these leads as well, because one of the don'ts as well is to not send emails, not to keep sending emails to unengaged leads or unengaged subscribers. If they haven't engaged or replied after 4 emails, you can add them to a lapsed segment and try again at a later time. And we'll get to that as well in a second. Another do is to obviously segment your automation using customer attributes. So customer attributes can be, for example, the sector that they're coming from. So you have like a drop down and they can select the sector of their business. It can be the area that they're coming from, right? So you can segment them based on geolocation, whatever, right? Whatever you feel like it's relevant, it's statistically significant for you as well. But it brings me to my next point, which is the one that you should not do, and you shouldn't overcomplicate your automation with irrelevant A/B tests and splits and all of that. Because at the end of the day, if you're just starting out, if you don't have a big influx of users coming through your automation, splitting your automation based on, I'm going to have one email sent with a slightly different copy and one email sent with slightly different copy, that's not going to have any statistical significance. At the end of the day, the result will probably be similar. In terms of the apps, again, I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar that with the right a stack of tools, you could do the same thing. You could build a very comprehensive or simple marketing automation strategy. I'm mentioning a couple here. I'm not promoting any of these. It's just the ones that I've particularly used with videos and other businesses that I've worked with in the past. Really, you can use any email software provider, any sort of CRM has capabilities for integrations and to build comprehensive automations. But in this particular example, I have used ActiveCampaign to create email follows and automation. Zapier, again, if you don't know it, it's an unbelievable web app that allows you to integrate various apps with each other. Calendly, again, any sort of call booking app will help you to seamlessly collect all that data and integrate it with your CRM and other tools. In this particular case, Calendly. And Typeform, it's a sort of survey app that's kind of like the main their main goal, what the sort of reason they're going to get customers. But particularly, I use it to enrich customer profiles and qualify leads. It's a great tool to sort of add more layers to the lead inquiry. Moving on to number 2, which is how marketing automation can help you increase sales, is to eliminate lead research and data entry using automated customer data enrichment. Data entry is one of the top time wasters in sales. Automation allows you to eliminate this. And I want to have a look at 2 very different situations, how I would cut some of the lead research and data entry using automation. On the left-hand side, we're looking at inbound leads. So the ones that inquire directly on your website. On the right-hand side, we're looking at outbound leads, the ones that your sales team gets in touch with using cold emails or cold calls. Let's have a look at the first one. So in this particular case, it could very much be what we talked about at the beginning, where you have a sort of resource on your page that people can download, and then you follow up, you sort of send them to your sales team and you try and qualify them from there on. But another layer that you can add to this is that you can use marketing automation to synchronize data across all of your systems. So in this particular case, the moment the lead has inquired on your website, you can obviously send them to your email service provider. So you can send them triggered emails, email follow-ups. Then you can send them within your CRM. So all of that data gets synchronized with your main CRM that you're using. And another more advanced thing that you could do, you could use data enrichment tools as well. So there's 2 ways you can do that. The first one is using some sort of data enrichment app or tool that's out there. I'm not going to give any particular names. There's quite a few out there. This will allow you to send the customer properties that you've collected. So for example, let's say you have first name, last name, email address, and business name. You send them to the data enrichment tool, and within a matter of minutes, that will automatically populate multiple data points about your lead. So that could be annual revenue for their business. It could be their actual location of their headquarters. It could be phone numbers that are all of them public records online, that otherwise it would have taken your sales team quite a bit of time to research and find and then add manually within the CRM or Excel spreadsheet, whatever you might be using. This can automate that for you. And if you decide that you don't want to invest at this stage in such a thing as a data enrichment tool, you could also add this as part of your inquiry process, where I've mentioned that you could learn more about your leads and all of that data. For example, asking them why are they inquiring, asking them, what sector are they are their businesses in. All of those different questions are data points that you can send within your CRM, and it makes life easier for your sales team when doing the outreach. So it's a very sort of out of the box way of thinking of how marketing automation can help you as well. Now, on the other side with outbound leads, obviously outbound leads means that your sales team has to outsource leads online, whether they're looking at particular websites of your target market, or they're on LinkedIn and they're looking for specific companies. The general way, the standard way of doing it is that you do it manually and you collect all that data, you add it within the CRM, and then you manually outreach them. You could automate the entire process by using some sort of email address sourcing tool or a data sourcing tool, which usually is as simple as just having a browser extension, an extension on your browser that you click on it, it automatically scans what's happening on the website, it automatically scans all the people that you're looking at on LinkedIn. This is obviously completely okay to do. All of the information that it collects is information that your sales team would have gotten anyway, so public records. Adds them to a particular segment. That segment then gets synchronized with your CRM. At that point, you can also start sending them email follow-ups. So instead of having your sales team do the manual outreach, you can have like a sequence of 3 or 4 emails trying to get them to engage with you. And then as well, if you want to add a separate layer to it, you could also enrich those leads further to learn more about them. And all of this sort of stage is synchronized between each other in a matter of minutes. So that's one thing, one way you could eliminate some of the time that it takes your sales team to put all data entry and research on outbound leads. Data enrichment, it really gives your sales team unique intelligence and allows them to better prepare their outreach and messaging. Number 3 on our list is automation can help you win back all leads or customers. With automation, email triggers can send personalized messages to prospects at precise moments in their buying cycle. And I want to give you a few examples. Let's say, for example, you have a lost lead. So your sales team works with a pipeline, a standard pipeline, where they take them to various different stages. Again, if you work in a different type of business and you don't work with pipelines, let's say you have an e-commerce, this can also apply to a similar situation where you have an old customer that hasn't bought from you in a long time, right? So try and apply this to multiple ways of doing it. But going back to what I've said, you have a lost lead. Your sales team can be trained to, it can be as simple as just updating a data property that exists within your CRM. So that can be a win back, yes, no, a drop down that you can have yes, no. As soon as they put yes, then that lead will be entered within an automation, or it can just be as simple as moving them to a specific stage on the pipeline, which can be called win back or whatever you want to call it. It's irrelevant. Something that will be able to trigger the automation and send that particular lead within your email service provider. But this is kind of like how I imagine it. So you have a lost lead, your sales team adds it to a specific segment. That then triggers the automation, which has a delay, which can be set by you, obviously, by your marketing team. So it can be 30 days, 60 days, 180 days, whatever you think it's relevant, or whatever you think it might be worth doing for a lost lead, like depending on, when do you think it might be worth getting back in touch with them. You can further segment these leads based on customer properties. So again, what we talked about in the beginning of annual revenue or geolocation, whatever, and then send email follow-ups after a set time, trying to re-engage with them. And then that can also be sent back to your sales team if they engage, cutting some of the time that it would take to go through all of these lost leads and try and engage with them. You can automate the entire process. Another example, for example, let's say a deal has stalled in the indecision stage for 30 days. So the lead is stagnant, nothing happened with it. An email, you can set an automation for an email to be triggered from the salesperson that was assigned to that specific account, asking the prospects about their thoughts, if they're still interested. They can then use this information. To plot their next course of action more efficiently. So yeah, that's how you can win back all customers and leads. These are just 2 of the examples you can set up. They're quite easy to implement and synchronize your CRM and your email service provider together. Moving on to number 4, a way that you can increase sales with marketing automation, not just sales, but also overall productivity, is to break down your customer journey. So understand your ideal customer, what stages, those sort of stages that I've mentioned within the ecosystem at the beginning of the slides, and then try and envision those stages, kind of like what are the specific steps that they're going to go through, and follow up intelligently. using that. In sales, timing is everything, and reaching the right prospect at exactly the right time can mean the difference between a conversion and a dismissal. And a successful sales team knows that whenever someone opens or shares an email or views a website page or a presentation or a proposal, is going to have a much better intel to respond accordingly and timely than a salesperson who's left guessing. And to give you some examples how you can do this, let's say a lead has visited your website. So an existing lead within your CRM has visited your website. Using, again, integrations that you can add, like some sort of tracking to your website, you can detect when an old lead has come back to visit your website, which obviously if you wouldn't have done that, you couldn't have possibly known that. In that moment, the automation gets triggered, and you will have, you can set an automation to send an internal Slack message if you're using Slack or whatever communication tool, or even an email to your sales team, to that specific account that was dealing with a specific deal, saying that this lead has visited the website. It's very important here to not make it creepy and your sales team goes back and is like, hey, I see that you visited our website. No, I wouldn't go with that approach. It's more about having the intelligence behind that they looked at your website again, and you could approach in a few days, just casually seeing, kind of like checking in to see if they want to have a chat. If you want to put that further in, let's say you have a lot of warm leads that your sales team has to prioritize on a weekly basis, and these old leads that might re-engage with your website or might re-engage with your content, you don't want to necessarily prioritize them. You want to add them to deal with at a later stage. You could have the same sort of automation, adding another layer to it where you update a custom property called, in this example, let's say last seen date to the current date, the day that they visited the website. And that can be visible within the pipeline. So when your sales team goes and looks at these lost leads, or stagnant leads, lapsed leads, whatever you want to call them, they can see the date that that lead has last been on the website. Alternatively, if you have an app, if you work in SaaS, it could be the last time they've used your app. If you're in e-commerce, it could be the last time it viewed a product. So there's multiple ways of looking at it. Lastly, this is another example. If someone views your pricing page, so for a lot of businesses, the pricing, like, you could have it quite generic. So it could be that you want to trigger the automation just if the lead has been on your website, or you could make it more specific just to qualify that you don't want to get in touch with everyone that has been on your homepage. They could have been on your homepage for multiple reasons, but someone that looks on your pricing page or your contact page, so if you make it more specific, that's someone you might want to add through the automation and send into the CRM. So you could have something like someone views your pricing page, you send an email follow-up after a few days, just again, casual, trying to check in from the account manager of that specific lead. You update the current the day property as well, and you send an internal Slack message to the sales team, to the salesperson. So it's a few more steps, and it's a bit more specific. Depends on the type of strategy you want to go with. Lastly, on our webinar today is marketing automation can help you automate renewals and referrals. And these are some of my favorite ones. And I think a lot of them are overlooked by a lot of businesses. So starting with renewals, automations can help your sales team better track when contracts end and proactively work to engage clients in a renewal. So if you have if your business model involves a lot of contracts with the start date and renewal date, you could use this to make sure that emails go to clients to remind them of the success they have seen with you, with the company, and the opportunities that lie ahead. At the same time, emails can automatically populate the inbox of your sales team to remind them about the upcoming dates and the renewal workflow. The automation can look something like this. So the renewal date coming up, you send an internal email or Slack message to your sales team, and then you send the email follow-up to the client. Another automation, moving on to referrals. This is one of my favorite ones as well. And I know that a lot of businesses are overlooking referrals, or it's something they always wanted to do, but you didn't quite get to it. You could automate it. So it could be as simple as automating it. It doesn't take that long to do it. It could take even less if you have a good content writer to write the emails for this. But let's say your sales team has tagged a deal at one. You've just won a new client or a new customer. Again, try and apply this to multiple models. In this particular stage, if we're talking about a sales team which has a pipeline, they move them into the one stage. at that particular point, that should trigger your referral automation. So that particular client or new customer or new client, customer or client should be added to the referral automation. It should have a delay. The delay should be ideally long enough for them to have tried your service or product and to have an opinion about it. No one is going to refer you to other people if they don't know what they're referring. So 30 days, 60 days, whatever you think it's relevant for your business. And you could send an email follow-up. So the email follow-up could, I'm not going to get into the specific type of copy that you could put in that email, but just as a sort of a very simplified way, it could be, you know, hey, John, just checking in. It's been a few months since you've tried our product or service. One was wondering if you have anyone within your network that would also like to use our service, right? So again, very simplified way of looking at it. You send the email follow-up, and then the collection of the referral can be, you can stop the automation here. So that you can collect the referrals by simply having the lead, the customer, reply to the email with the list of people they would recommend, right? So you can make that quite manual, or you can automate it further. So you could have a form within the email that your client or customer would click on. They would then fill out that form with the referral information, with their contact details for the referrals, the people that they want to send to you. And that can also be synced within your email provider, and you can send email follow-ups to the people that you had as referrals. So you can send an email intro to all of the new referrals saying like, John has recommended that we get in touch with you, yada, yada, yada. And we would like to have a chat with you. So that, again, you should try and send at least 3 or 4 email follow-ups to be able to get them to engage with you. So that's the main goal. And then you just repeat the entire sort of automation workflow that you have for new leads as well. If you want to add, and I'll just add this, it's not in the particular slide, but if you want to add another layer to this, you could gate the, so for example, not all of your customers are going to be so happy that they want to refer you to other people. So you could add the customer satisfaction layer to it, where before you send an email asking for referrals, you send an email asking them for an NPS score, right? So you simply ask them on a scale from 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this to someone? If you can segment them in 3 pots, so I think it's promoter, passives, and detractors. If they're 1 to 6, then they're a detractor, 7 to 8 passive, and 9 and 10, they're a promoter. So if they're a passive and a promoter, if you want to be more strict, if they're just a promoter, you could then trigger the next email to be sent to them to like, hey, so great that you gave us such a good score. We're so happy that you're enjoying our service or product. Would you like to refer someone to our business? And that way you have a more guaranteed workflow that those people will be more likely to send referrals, to give you any referrals. With the other ones, I would probably send them back to their account manager or their customer success manager or the sales team, the salesperson that initially was in touch with them, to hopefully try and change their mind, or obviously if they're not having that great of an experience with your service, you want to change that. But yeah, I hope that's pretty much it. I hope I tried to cover a few different aspects of marketing automation. And I hope you found some of it useful. I think we're about 40 minutes in, so I hope I'm on time. Yeah, I'm sorry if I got sidetracked with any sort of on any of the slides. And also, I hope it wasn't that complicated not to understand. I know there's a lot more than to just saying automate a customer renewal. These sort of things usually take quite a bit of time to set up within the automation tool that you're using. But I hope this one was more of a strategic session to give you ideas of what's possible with marketing automation. This is only scratching the surface of what you can do with it. And that's it. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can search for my name. I believe the organizer said my link is in the comment section as well. And if you have any questions, happy to answer.
Fantastic. Thank you, Bogdan. The question from me is really, what would be your 3 key takeaways from today's session for small businesses?
Key 3 takeaways. I would say the first one, given the current context of privacy issues with data, is to focus more on collecting relevant data from your customers. You know, we're getting into an age where I'm not sure how many of you are aware, Apple has implemented things such as mail privacy, where we're not really seeing what happens with our email marketing anymore. So you can't really see if emails are being opened anymore because Apple blocks that. So all of these things are going to be more and more restricted in the future. And I believe zero and first-party data are very important. And what I mean by that is collecting more data properties about your customers and knowing more about them so you can get more relevant and more personalized with the messages they are sending. Another key takeaway, definitely try and I know a lot of businesses might not do this, but try and go back to the whiteboard and design to draft your customer journey. Try and understand what places they land on your website, what places have the best conversion rates, and add lead collection tools on that particular page, whether that is a pop-up, whether that is a form, a resource that they can download. Focus more on focus more on collecting more leads for your business, and then follow up with triggered emails. And I think the third takeaway, I'm not sure, I think it's simply try and look at what others within your sector as well are doing with marketing automation. You know, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Obviously, if you hire an expert, they will be able to help you with what can work best for your business. But try and see what others are doing. Maybe, you know, it doesn't hurt to look at some of your competitors as well, to see if you're doing anything different, and apply that in marketing automation. See kind of like how you can improve as well.
Fantastic. No, I think that was really useful for our audience. So thank you very much for joining us today. We will be back in January now for the rest of the How To Academy Small Business Masterclasses with Salesforce. So thank you very much to Bogdan for joining us today. As he mentioned, I've included his LinkedIn profile in the comments, so please feel free to connect. We've had a few questions regarding the recording of the session. This will be available later on today. Everyone who's attended will receive a follow-up email later on with a link to that, so you can all watch on demand there. Fantastic.
Thank you as well.
Thank you very much for joining us. Have a good day, everybody.